It's a fantastic filler. It's quite light actually because it's not a big stodgy gravy. It's got a nice thickness to the gravy. Lovely seasoned all the way through. That is one heck of a decent dish. That is Scouse made. Hi everyone, welcome to Backyard Chef. I'm Rick. Today we're making a classic from Liverpool and it's called Scouse. Now Scouse was originally made with lamb and beef together, but over the years it's either been changed to a beef dish or a lamb dish. You know, families do all different things, cook it their own way. We are going to use a mix of lamb and beef, try and stick to the original. Okay, we've got some stock cubes which probably wasn't used at the time, but we're going to stick to the original with lamb and beef. I have beef chuck in here. I've got beef chuck and I've got some lamb shoulder, half. Now it's a straightforward recipe and I'm using the slow cooker. I'm going to chuck everything in there. We're having a lazy day today. We're going to prep up the veg, throw it in there, serve it up in about 5 hours time or 6 hours time. Now if you slow cook it, you can cook it for 8 hours, but I'm going to high cook it. I'm going to cook it, now you should cook it between 4 and 5 hours, but I always remember 4, 5, 6 for something like this. So we're going to do the 4 or 5 hours and then we're going to look at it and see if it's cooked enough, tender enough. If it is, we'll serve. If not, lid off, cook for a bit longer. So it could go to 6 hours. Right, it's a straightforward recipe. We've got a little bit of cutting to do. I've already cut some swede actually, and that's rutabaga in across the pond in the US, Canada, wherever, rutabaga. But it's swede, not turnip. I've done the swede. I've got some carrots, onions, I've got some potatoes in here. Okay, so what we're going to do is start chopping and dicing, chuck it all to one side, and then we're going to fry off the meat. I like to fry my meat before I put it in there. Now for this dish you do not have to be any sort of culinary genius. We're basically just chucking it all in a pot and leaving it. It's as simple as that. So that's our onions. We have a couple of carrots. And we want some reasonable chunks of the carrot. You know, this thing's going to be cooking for a good 5 hours, I reckon. So we're coming in there with some decent chunks of carrot. It's as easy as 1, 2, 3. Now this is one of those recipes which is really good actually. You can put in what you want, you know, just change it up, do what you want. It doesn't matter for this type of recipe. It's so versatile. Right, I've already peeled some potatoes. So we want to be cubing some of these up. Quite large too. In our bowl. So I'm going to use what is commonly known in the UK as OXO cubes. Simple as that. Right, we want to put some water in there. This is boiling water, but that doesn't matter. You're going to go in the slow cooker, it'll warm up eventually. Right, we're going to crumble in there a couple of these cubes. Now I don't have any fingernails, as usual, for something like this. Okay, so we're just going to crumble that, and we're just going to leave it in there. Now I'm going to use 2, so that's in there, like that. That is easy enough. Okay, my meat. Before we get going on the meat, I like to season my meat. I want some salt in there. Salt to taste, whatever you want in there. And we're going in with some pepper. We want this seasoning up. Now we'll be putting some thyme in there, but I want a little bit of this dried thyme in here with this meat. It's going to stick to this meat with the flour and we're going to fry it off. It's going to give us some flavour on that meat. Right, we want to be going in there with a little bit of flour. Something about like that. Let's give it a little stir in. Ah, looking all right, that. Do you want to hit it up with a little bit more flour? That'll do. Somewhere around about there. That is fantastic. Okay, you need to be getting a pan on which is suitable to cook your meat. Okay, for this one, oil, butter, olive oil, anything that you cook with. I'm having a combination of butter and some oil. So it's straightforward then. It's a pan on, flame on, not too high. The history behind this dish as we're starting this off, you know, it can be dated back to the 18th century. And it comes from the Nordic name lobscouse. And it's obviously been shortened to scouse over the years and it changed. Now it was originally a stew eaten by the sailors. And then it's obviously been adapted over the years. Right, we've got some oil going on there. We're going in there and we're going to give a little fry on that meat. Now, we're not trying to cook this. We're trying to sear it all off all over and give some colour. Because by the time it sits in that slow cooker, the colour's going to just disappear off it anyway. So it's a nice and steady one. For all the people that cook, you already know that. So lobscouse was the name and it is now known by the name of scouse. Now most places, if you go into Liverpool, you know, like restaurants, bars, pubs, places like that, you know, that serve scouse, normally cook straight with beef. They don't mix it anymore. You know, beef is a cheaper cut of meat and produces a fantastic results. So it's entirely up to you whether you just use beef or you combine both. A nice little bit of caramelization going on there, or a little bit of browning with some crustiness with the flour. Just what we want. We want that brown on there, that little bit of crusty. It's going to come off in that pan. So we might as well start it off. Okay, that's enough. We're going to get the flame off on that one. Now, you could go all the way and you could cook everything in here, put a lid on and let it simmer on the stove top for an hour and a half, 2 hours. But like I say, it's lazy cooking today, so it's going in there. Lid off. And that is going in there. All in there. No more than that. Now, this in here, all this sediment in here, we're just going to actually put the flame back on and we're going to go in there with a little bit of that stock. Now you don't have to do this obviously, but let's just take some of that sediment off the bottom of that pan and put that in there. Saves our cleaning as well then. Put our onions in there, get that in. A little bit of a stir around in there, help take off that off the bottom. Onions will lose that oniony strong flavour. We're not cooking these onions, by the way. We're just helping get this stuff off the bottom of the pan. Okay, that'll do. And that is going on top of all that meat in there. That is it. As you can see, we've got a fairly clean pan. Right, for this one, there's no stirring and messing around. You just leave the meat on the bottom. That's our swede. That's in there. That's our carrots in there. And this is our potatoes in there. Now you can add celery, you can add all sorts of things. That's some bay leaves. I'm going to go in with some thyme. Even though we season that meat with the thyme, we want some thyme in there. And we want about a glug of Worcester sauce. So that's about a tablespoon. Now that's optional. Some people don't like to use it, I do. In there with our beef broth. Perfect. That's nice and steady. How much do we put in there? About 4 cups. Somewhere around about there. Okay. And then it's on with the lid, on to high. And that's it. And we'll come back in about 4 hours and have a look. Now what I might do, I might come along and just give it a stir. Just turn it round, but I'm not going to go crazy. And we need the meat to melt into there and go nice and tender. So we'll just leave that to cook. Back in about 4.5 hours. That is perfect. That really is perfect. Right, what you can do, if you want a thick sauce on this, you can mix up a little bit of corn flour, put it in there, it will thicken up. Or you can cook it for about another half an hour without the lid on. And some of that's going to evaporate, but I can tell you now, it's not going to evaporate like cooking with a pan. It's not hot enough to evaporate it out. So the best option would be to mix up some corn flour and stir it in if you want a thicker gravy. And I think that's what we're going to do. So we got a little bit of corn flour in here. And a little bit of water. Just give it a little mix in. Dissolve it all, and then we're going to chuck it in there. Like that. That goes in there. Just going to give that a little stir through. Now it's not going to thicken because we haven't put enough in, and we're not going to cook it too much longer either. Want to be eating this. Right, bay leaves, you can either leave them all in if you're just going to serve out of the pan, or you can take the bay leaves out. Up to you. Normally this type of meal, this scouse, is served up with some nice crusty bread, red cabbage and beetroot, or red cabbage or beetroot. Now I have both, I make everything here, so I'm going to serve it up with the red cabbage and beetroot and some crusty bread. So I think we need to be serving it up. And there we have it. That is scouse made. All we got to do now is give it a taste test. Oh, look at that. Just look at that. I mean, you can see how tender this meat is, look. Well, it's just falling apart. I want to get covered in beetroot juice, so I'll have to be careful. That is absolutely amazing. potato, soft, but still firm. You know what I mean? Same with the carrots. Carrots still soft, but with that firmness, a little bit of crunch actually. Bit of lamb. Oh, there's actually no chewing on that, which is a good thing because I don't have many teeth. It just, boom, falls away in your mouth. It's unbelievable. That's a nice piece of beef there, look. Let's give that a go. This is homemade red cabbage and beetroot, but we're featuring the scouse. But scouse is always served up with red cabbage or beetroot. And crusty bread. And crusty bread to dip in there. This is a proper winter hearty meal. And you can see why. You know, this sort of stuff came around for the sailors. The sailor needed filling up. Oh, that is really enjoyable. Really, really enjoyable. That is fantastic. I mean, you can serve this with whatever, but it's normally served with crusty bread. But you know, you could serve it with mashed potatoes, anything like that, really, you know, even though it's got potatoes in. It's superb. It's a fantastic filler. It's quite light, actually, because it's not a big stodgy gravy. It's got a nice thickness to the gravy. Lovely seasoned all the way through. That is one heck of a decent dish. That is Scouse made. If you like what we're doing, don't forget, smash that like and subscribe, share with your friends, all that kind of stuff. And we'll catch you in the next video.